You're welcome back to The Pulse. And just before the break, I was telling you that we have brought you a comprehensive report on what happened last year, the memorial service this year, and where we go after this. What lessons have we learned, and what are the takeaways from today's commemoration? Joining me in the studio now is Fred Smith with some details on the key lessons from the facts that we have gathered on the ground. We know that the committee set up to investigate the disaster was chaired by Justice Isaac Doche, a retired appeal court judge. My colleague Fred Smith is here with me to look through some of these recommendations and what we can learn or what we'll do to deal with these challenges that we are confronted with in this country. Good afternoon to you, Fred. Let's start with the obvious one, the cause of the flooding. Do we know what caused this?
Well, we know the committee itself has not made public its findings after the investigation. So all that we know is coming from what journalists have been able to glean from this investigation that they conducted last year. But we'll tell you, in one of those exposés that we've had, it says that inadequate water channels in the Accra metropolis, which made it impossible for the floodwater to flow freely, can be attributed to the cause of this disaster. So, yeah, choked drains mainly.
And it's good you mentioned that point, because I remember when the president, after visiting the scene last year, went for a cabinet meeting. He came back and said, we've devoted 50 million Ghana cedis to, first of all, deal with the wreckage you've seen on our roads and at the Ground Zero, which is the Goa filling station. And also, in dealing with this challenge on a long term, we are looking at expanding our water channels, including our drains. Also, for the drains we already have, some desilting should happen. The mayor of Accra today said that the desilting is 45% complete for the Odona drain and also the Koli Lagoon. But for the minor drains, he was silent. He said that they've done some work and they are continuing. But the evidence on the ground that we've seen in the past 2 weeks in checking does not show anything like that. And that's the biggest question here. If we are looking at people dying and we are having a memorial, how do we juxtapose the grief with the solutions, Fred? And for the cause of the floods you mentioned and the poor channels we have, what do we know about the challenge we have in that regard?
Well, we've spoken to some people, and you heard that report by Beatrice Edu, for instance. Those who live around those areas are saying that nothing has been done, even though there were promises to fix those drainage systems. Nothing has been done. It's a year. We are in the rainy season again, and the fear is that should it rain, we might experience a similar flooding situation. Yes, we've had promises. We've seen a few amounts of rainfall. It didn't cause a major disruption, even though the homes were flooded. But the fear will remain, considering what happened just a few months ago. That's 12 months ago. People are afraid that if it rains and the drainage systems have not been fixed, then the floodwaters can spill and, you know, go into people's homes, destroy properties as did a year ago.
Okay. Now, one other thing we need to look at is the subplot to this. Ordinarily, if it floods in Accra, no big deal. But when the fires came in, it made this disaster blow up on a bigger proportion. Now, Fred, for what we've gleaned, even though the report isn't out, what have we gathered on the cause of the fire and who we are holding responsible for the fire?
Well, I tell you what the report says, which is unofficial, fact. Except from that report, it says the fire was ignited by one Seth Kwesi Ofosu, who did not dispose of properly the butt of a cigarette he was smoking. So, according to the committee's findings, one Mr. Seth Kwesi Ofosu was smoking around the Goyle filling station area, and as was flooding, you know, there was a spillage from the filling station, and because he didn't properly dispose of the back of the cigarette, he left it somewhere and it sparked fire.
It's interesting. Is that the only reason is that the only reason they give? Because ordinarily, if anyone smokes anywhere and drops the butt, nothing happens. But this was a case of the spillage of what? Fuel from a filling station.
Exactly. And so there was a plan to deal with filling stations that are in the wrong places, because we need to also know why the spillage occurred in the first place. So if there was a spillage, I'm sure Mr. Ofosu's cigarette wouldn't have caused any damage, any harm, if there wasn't a spill.
Okay.
So what we need to do is to ensure that filling stations are adhering to the rules, how the regulations set by the NPA, the safety rules are all followed. And that's what our colleague Raymond Akwa followed up on, and I'm sure we have a report on that.
On that, yes. Let's bring you that report now, and then we'll wrap up with the remote courses that were also identified in the committee's report. Right, so we have been discussing the causes of the flood and fire disaster at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle. Fred Smith is with me in the studio. Fred, we were looking at the remote cause of this disaster we saw last year. What are we gleaning on that?
So the report simply says the remote cause is the flooding of the Kwame Nkrumah Circle area. As simple as that. That's how they put it. The intermediate cause, they say, is the displacement of fuel from the Goil filling station. Now put all these together and we should be able to tell how to prevent a recurrence in the future. And so they make some recommendations, Francis. One of them, it says that they should complete the dredging of the Odor drain. There should also, Francis, be a ban on the use of plastics as carrier bags, water dispensers and cooked food containers. There should be a ban on all of these. And I'm not sure this ban is enforced.
I've been to the area myself. I didn't see anything like that happen, especially even for where the disaster struck. One will imagine that the precaution will be there so we don't see these things recur. But clearly the signs are on the wall. We're just hoping to get some response from the AMA and the regional minister as to why we are seeing these challenges, and beyond the desilting of the drains, what more we're doing in dealing with this challenge in Accra. But thank you, Fred Smith, for these details on the reports that we have. Anything more you have so we can just wrap it up?
Well, the other recommendations that they made, they're saying that they suggested that they should do standardized training and certification and licensing of filling station attendants. We don't know if that has been done yet. The creation of sanitation police, compulsory fitting of all commercial vehicles with refuse baskets or bins, and equipping of disaster managers with the requisite tools to effectively handle disasters. And Francis, if these things are being done, I'm sure the evidence should be on the ground. If you sit in a commercial vehicle, you should see the bins fitted there. I'm not sure that's available as we speak.
I haven't seen that as well.
Yes. What we can tell is whether the training has been provided to those who need that training. Also, the committee recommended the provision of air ambulances and helicopters, helicopter firefighters, which should be managed by the Ghana Air Force, and a fund to cater for the injured and deceased families. I'm sure that the fund is the first one. It's been done already. The air ambulance, we don't know. We haven't been told if that has been done.
We haven't seen that yet. So clearly, a lot more things to look at in terms of the recommendations that were given last year, and which ones have been fulfilled, which ones have not. Thank you, Fred Smith, for these details. Now, the traditional priests of Accra are saying that the disaster we saw last year is not just something that happened as a result of someone's mistake, but actually the making of the gods. He says they've been angered by the lack of respect shown to traditions of the Ga people. Chief priest of the Ga state, Nawulomo Numo Akwamensan III, says the gods are angry.
Grief engulfed the nation, and darkness wrenched the little dim light that hung over the country when floodwaters inundated homes, offices, marketplaces, and leisure centers on June 3 last year. Over 150 people died on that fateful Wednesday night, most of them at the Goil filling station at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, where hundreds of people had been trapped, while the cause of floods was blamed largely on the choked Odo, the president of the Ga Traditional Council attributed the disaster to the Dumsor Vigil, a march organized in protest against the country's energy crisis. The council says the protest violated the ban on drumming and noise-making at the time.
Last year, we all witnessed a lot of or series of disasters. Some are minor, some are major. That it affected everybody. People were agitating to this fact that the demonstration that was organized by the youth, dubbed Dumsor whatever, Vigil, is absolutely the cause of the disaster we had. Fine. If everybody knows that that thing was wrong and it was done in the wrong timing, then yes, nobody needs to be blamed for that. Because one, when there is ban on drumming, we want absolute silence. And I'm telling you, I complain about these things that you can never have a demonstration without noise. Let's go back to May 9th. When the House and Kotoko March was played, that we had the most, if I should say, serious disaster ever was played during. We've had ban on drumming, and that incident came. Nobody has even complained because everybody thought it was fun, but that is wrong. You see, look at the number of lives that were lost. Yes, it happened again, and again, and again. And then we are facing the consequences, and we are not trying to go by the rule.
It's been a year since the incident happened, and according to the chief priest of the Ga State, Numo Akwa Mensah III, Ghanaians have still failed to observe the absolute silence needed during the Homowa period. Naiwu Lomo says the gods of the land are still angry.
Anything could happen, and it could not happen. If it is about to happen, we'll know. And then when I'm setting, I'll call you back here and let the whole world know. I make sure I say what is setting. I don't guess. So if I should tell you something that I'm not setting off, I'm trying to deceive the people. But the feeling is there that we've offended and then something will surely happen.
Right then, so let's now speak to the mayor of Accra, Alfred Okuvan-Dapoy. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us here on The Pulse. And we know that you were present at the memorial service in Accra today, but you mentioned a number of things to do with the committee's report and that the recommendations were actually being carried out to the letter. Can you tell us which ones are being done now?
You said what is being done?
When you delivered the speech today, you mentioned that the committee that was set up to investigate the flood and fire disaster finished its work and the recommendations are already being implemented. I'm asking which ones have already started.
Well, you know, the dredging of the Korle Lagoon was a big one. The removal of Sodom and Gomorrah to allow water to go through the community into the ocean was another one. And today we don't have Sodom and Gomorrah over there. We have cleared that, housing or whatever they developed in the lagoon, and they were living on those. We've cleared all of those things. And then we are also dredging the Korle Lagoon. We have 3 dredges on the lagoon, dredging it and the Odo River.
Okay, so now that you say the dredging of the Korle Lagoon of the Odo River and the Korle Lagoon is 45% complete, what will it take to have it done completely?
It will have to have continuous dredging. The dredging must be, continuous for several months to come. And then we must also ensure that our plastic, our refuse and things do not go into the Korle.
Okay. Now, one other thing you mentioned, Mr. Van der Poel, is the issue of the bodies that still remain 1 year after the disaster. What's been the plan in helping the families identify the bodies? Because we've spoken to someone who says that the DNA which was supposed to have been done is still not complete.
Well, you know, anytime somebody should come forward and say that I have not seen or somebody is missing, there is a process. The police is involved, the medical teams are involved, and they can take you to a process where it will lead to you identifying the body. Once the body is identified, they do DNA to, substantiate the fact that that is the individual that belongs to your family. And then once that is done, then, we are able to identify the body, and then we arrange, proper burial services.
Now, how many of these bodies are still left yet to be identified, Mr. Van der Poel?
Oh, no, I don't have the number, but I know there are several of it that needs to be taken care of.
And the bodies are being kept where, sir?
They are at the morgue.
Police hospital, military hospital?
Yeah, those places where we have the morgues.
Okay, so beyond what government is doing, Mr. Van der Poel, we know that there's a human element to this. For those who live in areas which are flood prone, are they also helping in dealing with the filth challenge in these areas?
Well, yeah, those they are helping. We have areas. Several activities have to continue, and we, AMA, as a city authority, we are ensuring that we cross all our T's and dot our I's.
Now, for those who suffered the psychological trauma of this flood and fire disaster, is there anything that the Assembly is willing to do to help them?
Well, since June 3rd, I know that there were fire victims, the flooding victims, and they were all, put through the system of receiving the necessary assistance in terms of medical activities. They've been through the hospital, and while they are in the hospitals, I believe that if there were any needed referrals and things, that took place before they were discharged.
Okay, now there are some who've suggested, Mr. Van der Poel, that yes, today we've had the memorial service, the crying has been done, the remembrance has been done, but what more can we do to ensure that we don't come back next year with the same problems? What assurance can you give us as the mayor of Accra that a lot will be done to fix this?
Well, look, a lot has happened on the ground since June 3rd last year. I have mentioned some of them. We will continue to sustain that, and we will continue to get to the second phase where we have to construct the needed drains and things of that nature. And once we do those things, I know that, when it rains, we will keep down the level of flooding and things of that nature.
Okay, now for the reports that's been completed for the investigation into the flood and fire disaster, there's another element that many are asking questions about. For the one who did not ensure that the fuel tank was not properly closed, what happens to him?
I don't understand your question. What happens to who?
The one who did not close the fuel tanker at the filling station, which resulted in this flood and fire disaster, sir.
The one who did not close the
For the filling station, the spillage of the fuel, are they being held responsible for this?
Well, I don't know exactly what you mean by what happened to him.
As in, are there any sanctions per the committee's report?
Well, I'm sure the NADMO and the authorities that are working with the petroleum agencies and the committees, those will be within their realm of affairs. And if anybody will find cooperate in terms of having undertaken any negligible activity that led to this, I'm sure the person, or any criminal activities, but I don't think I'm aware of anything of that nature.
Okay, for where the filling station is sited, will the Assembly allow any individual to build another filling station there?
That is a physical development issue. We are not there yet. No application have been made to the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. Our doors are always open to receive applications. And when that happens, I think we'll go from there. I want to thank you for the time. If we can talk again later, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Alfred Ekuvan-Dapoy, the mayor of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. We'll go for a break at this point. We'll come back. We'll do sport here on The Pulse. Stay with us.